I want to quickly talk to you about ways to cash a check without a bank account this year. So here are the facts I want you to really pay attention to. The thing is that basically you have about 20% or 25% of the population in this country that doesn't have a checking account, okay? So there will be situations where you have a check and you don't have a bank account. So basically you need to get access to your money anyway. It's important to understand that it's one of those things where you have a lot of choices. I mean, when it comes to cashing the check without a bank account, you have the possibility to actually go to the issuing bank, for instance. You can go to a retailer. You can go to an online provider. You have a lot of apps nowadays that are actually making it very easy for you to actually cash a check without a bank account. You also can cash a check at a check cashing store. The thing is that you have a specialized, let's say, institution is called check cashing stores that actually make it very easy for you to actually cash a check without having a bank account. And you can also endorse a check to a third party. I mean, of course, I'll explain all of those possibilities into this conversation, but it's important to really know that don't really be desperate if you don't have a bank account. And for some, I mean, you have a lot of reasons why people don't have bank accounts. I mean, maybe you have a check systems file, a telecheck file, or an early warning systems file. So, or you just do not want to really trust the banking system. I mean, people have their reasons. It's not about judging them, but it's important to understand that you could find yourself in that situation. So the very first thing you want to do here, when you find yourself in a situation where you want to cash a check without a bank account, you want to go to the issuing bank. So look at the check and see the bank that issued the check in the first place. Is it Chase? Is it Bank of America? Is it Wells Fargo? Is it Truist? Is it PNC, US Bank? Whatever bank issued the check in the first place, you want to go there. Some banks and credit unions allow non-customers to cash checks issued by them. Now, they may charge either a flat fee or a percentage of the check amount, and fees and other costs may apply and may vary depending on the issuing bank. One thing for sure, the cheapest institutions are cheapest in terms of fees are Chase and Bank of America. Okay, so basically, the process may look something like this. So you want to locate and go to a branch of the bank that issued the check, endorse the back of the check by signing it. Okay, and you want to present the ID and the check to the bank teller, confirm the check details. And once the check is actually verified, the teller can process the transaction and provide the cash equivalent of the check and keep the receipt as proof of the transaction. If you want to cash a check without a bank account, you can actually cash a check at a retailer. I mean, the cool thing is that you have a lot of retailers, like retailer spots in the country. So when I speak about retailer, I'm talking about like some retail chains, for instance, large grocery stores and convenience stores offer check cashing services for a fee. I mean, they probably could charge you like a percentage of the check amount, or they could charge you a flat fee, depending upon the setup that you have at the store, but also the size of the retailer. Now, the process is kind of similar to cashing a check at the issuing bank. So before receiving the funds, you may be charged a fee by the retailer for processing and cashing the check. And these types of retailers may also limit how much someone can cash for non-personal checks, such as government cashiers or payroll checks. Okay, so if you want to really cash a check at a retailer, just be aware that there could be a limit. So they could say, you know what, we're not cashing a check beyond $5,000 or beyond $1,000, or you need extra ID or extra information if you want to cash such a large checks. Also, if you want to cash a check without a bank account, you can also cash a check using an online provider. So that's really the most convenient way of doing things, by the way. So if you're looking for a way to cash a check online without a bank account, some online financial services provide the ability to cash a check virtually. So, and they do this year round. You don't need to really wait for, let's say, 9 to 5. You don't need to You don't need you don't need to wait for a branch to open up for you to actually go cash your check. Okay. Now this is how typically things work. You want to set up an account with a provider, and the provider will likely request various personal information like your name, first name, last name, your email address, okay, and your residential address. But the steps will also vary depending on the provider. So once the account is set up, take a photo of the front and back of the check using the provider's mobile app. And so once the app verifies the check's authenticity, it will deposit the funds directly into the account with the provider, and the funds can then be transferred to another account if desired. Note that it can take several days or longer for a check to clear, depending on the online account provider and the check's issuing bank. And now, some providers may charge fees or other costs to set up the account or to cash checks. So review all terms to stay on top of potential costs. By the way, okay. So I mean, when I speak about an online provider, you have PayPal, for instance. You also have Cash App. So if you want to really cash a check without a bank account, you could also deposit a check onto a prepaid card. This is actually a pretty seamless way. Okay, deposit a check actually onto a prepaid card. So basically, a prepaid debit card functions similarly to a bank account debit card, but doesn't require a bank account to be open. So once a prepaid debit card is activated, a check can be deposited using the card provider's mobile app or website. So that's really good. And so the card can then be used to make purchases or withdraw cash. You can also, if you want to cash a check without a bank account, you can cash a check at a check cashing store, right? So as the name implies, check cashing stores specialize in cashing checks. It's important to know that they often charge very high fees. I mean, way more than you will get at the bank or at a retailer. And this fees can either be a percentage wise or a flat amount. And fees may actually vary depending on the check cashing store, or the amount of the check. So it's one of those things where you have to go to the store to actually find out how much they're charging you for the transaction. You also want to endorse a check to a third party. So sending a check over to a trusted third party, such as a friend or a family member, allows them actually to deposit the funds into their own bank account. So that is if they have a bank account, of course. And this process is also known as endorsing a check to a third party. So the recipients can then withdraw the amount in cash, transfer the funds via an online provider, or even reload a prepaid debit card. So you have a lot of possibilities there, a lot of flexibility. So, but one thing for sure though, it's important to understand that when you actually endorse a check to a third party, let's say a friend, a relative, a colleague, you are actually relinquishing control of the funds. So it's important to really sign a check over, okay, to someone trusted, and you are sure the person will transfer the funds back to you. Because the last thing you want is to actually endorse a check to someone who'll actually just vanish with the money, right? With your money. It's not the money, it's your money. So there is an element of risk there that you have to really sort of be careful about. Let me give you a few hacks here. I want to share with you top hacks. The thing is that if you want to cash a large check without a bank account, the procedure is a little different. I mean, you can cash a small check without a bank account, not a problem. You can go to a retail store, the issuing bank, an online provider, and so on and so forth. But when you have a large check, I'm speaking about 4 digit, like high 4 digits or 5 digits, then we're speaking about really a different set of realities, if you will. Okay. So cashing a large check can be more challenging without a bank account because some retailers have limits. You probably saw that a little earlier. Some retailers have limits on the maximum amount someone can cash. And that makes sense though. I mean, they're trying to cover their back. I mean, they're trying to really cover their back, because when you cash a large check without a bank account, if something were to happen, if the check turns out to be fraudulent, the loss to the retailer is too huge. So they're trying to really cover, trying to mitigate risks here. Now, there are some options for people who may need to cash a large check. So if you are in that category, let's say you want to really, like you have a $10,000 check, $10,000 check, and then you're like, you know what, I need to cash the check. This could be an IRS refund, or it can be just like you probably sold your car. Let's say you sold your car and you sold the car for 10 grand, and and then you don't have a bank account. Now you need to cash the check. Okay. First thing, you want to go to the issuing bank. Keep in mind that not all banks and credit unions offer this service, so it's always best to check ahead and ask if they allow non-customers to cash checks. So, of course, I think I said this before. There may be fees also charged for non-customers attempting to cash a check. You also want to go to a specialized check cashing store. Not all check cashing stores will honor a large check, but there are a few of them that will work with you, especially if you've been there before. If they know you as a regular client, as a legit client, they will work with you. Or you can just think about third-party checks. So sending a check to a third party is another option available, okay? But again, it's one of those things where you have to make sure the third party is a trusted friend, is a trusted colleague, is a trusted relative, so you can get your cash real fast. Let me talk to you about how to cash a government check without a bank account. So there could be, let's say, instances where you have a government check, let's say a check from Social Security, a check from the IRS, a check from a state institution, right? And so it's important to understand that the like retailers are more comfortable, they are more confident when the issuing institution, when the drawer of the check is a government institution, because they know that basically that they'll get paid anyway. So cashing a government check without a bank account is actually possible with some of the solutions that I outlined a little earlier, right? Including retailers, check cashing stores, and online providers, as long as the check doesn't exceed the accepted amount limit. I mean, once you go above a certain limit, I mean, you have an element of risk there. And how do you cash a settlement check without a bank account? So, settlement checks are another category of checks that you really have to pay attention to. So, settlement checks are often able to be cashed with the methods that I really listed to you a little earlier. Now, the availability to do so will depend on each specific method and or store. It depends on the location too. I mean, the geography where you are at. So the city and state plays an important role. So if someone needs to do this, if someone needs to cash a settlement check without a bank account, it's always a great idea to tell them to review all the options and understand what fees are involved. Now, potential cost when cashing a check without a bank account, you have to really understand that you might have like check cashing fees. You might also have to account for fees to expedite the funds immediately, because there could be cases where you want your cash real fast. Like, let's say you want your cash right away. So if you want the cash right away, just be ready to pay for this speed. I mean, time is money, and so the institution will charge you a little extra fees. And also, don't forget that you might have a prepaid card fees also. So it's always like you want to review any terms and fees associated when determining which method to actually use. Let me talk to you about the best practices here. When you think about ways to cash a check without a bank account, I want to really mention like known institutions such as Walmart, Kmart, and other big box stores. So the first crop of check cashing options include those major big box retailers that actually offer basic financial services through their customer service departments or money services stores within stores. Okay, typically Western Union branded outlets. I mean, I've actually covered this on the show before. Like I covered Walmart banking, I covered Publix banking, I covered Kroger banking. So those big box stores have within their stores, within their facilities, departments that really will take care of you in terms of check cashing. Okay, many big box retailers also have in-store bank branches with their own check cashing policies and fee schedules. And some allow large checks up to $5,000, while others cap cashing at lower amounts. So you can have 5,000, and Walmart is pretty known for going all the way to a 10 grand, depending on the location. So speaking about Walmart, Walmart offers an array of money services through a MoneyGram. So its check cashing limit for non-personal checks is 5,000 all the way to 10,000 per check from May through December, and 7,500 from January through May to accommodate tax refund checks. So 7,500 to $15,000. And the check cashing fee is a flat fee of $4 for checks up to $1,000, and $8 for checks between 1,001 and 5,000. And the cashing limit for personal checks is actually $200 with a maximum fee of $6. So that's really good to know. You also have Kmart. So Kmart's Money Hub cashes non-personal checks up to 2 grand, and two-party personal checks up to $500. And fees actually varies. The fees vary by state, but never exceed $5 per check. And the service is essentially a fee-free in Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, South Carolina, and Washington State. You also have HEB. So Texas-based big box retailer HEB offers money services, including check cashing through in-store Western Union hubs. And upper check amount limits and fees actually vary by store, but you should expect to pay at least $3 per check. And then you also have Meijer. So Meijer is Michigan-based big box retailer that also has like those services. So that's pretty good. You can also try your local supermarket. I mean, it's one of those things where you might really just be better off talking to a local supermarket, okay? So when you think about your local supermarkets, I mean, I'm speaking about Kroger and Kroger-owned brands. You have Albertsons and Albertsons owned brands. You have Food Lion, for instance. You also have Food Giant, and you have Publix. I actually finished a video on Kroger and Kroger banking. I mean, Kroger banking in general. Okay, so Kroger and Kroger-owned brands actually operates out of thousands of individual locations across approximately 20 Kroger-owned supermarkets brands. And so the cool thing is that you have the ubiquity. Okay, you have a brand that's actually nearly present everywhere. So that's kind of cool. And the fees are actually pretty reasonable too. You are looking at $3 all the way to $9 for a check that can go all the way to $5,000. You also have Albertsons, and their own brands also is pretty good. What about Food Lion? Food Lion cashes payroll, machine printed only, and government checks up to $1,000 per check, and cashes personal checks up to the greater of $50 or $50 over the purchase amount if the check is being cashed with a grocery orders. So that's kind of important. Now, the fees actually vary by store, whether you talk about Food Lion, Food Giant, or Publix. Okay. You also have your neighborhood convenience store. Oh, for instance, you have 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is arguably the most popular convenience store for check cashing. That's due not just because of its ubiquity, but also the fact that you have a very handy, user-friendly prepaid debit card app. Okay, now the transact by 7-Eleven sometimes can be a little buggy, but it's still there anyway. You also have a Circle K. So Circle K actually their locations mostly sell green dot reloadable prepaid debit cards, which can be loaded with funds from payroll checks and certain other types of non-personal checks. And the load fees actually vary by products. So, and some of which also carry a monthly fee. So that's really important. And by the way, you can also go to a credit union. You can go to a bank. You have a lot of possibilities. So the bottom line to this conversation, I explained to you ways to cash your check without a bank account. I give you the facts, the top hacks, the best practices, and now the bottom line. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.